This week on Supercars Talk, the racing is back and I've got exciting Indigenous liveries to talk about, plus the Asian series. Should we be doing this? The big news this week is that Triple Eight, not to be outdone by Walkinshaw and Andretti United, who currently have the honour of being the last people in the world to build a Commodore. Triple Eight are going to build a brand new Commodore. Yes. So as most people probably know, Super 2 previously you had to race a car that had been raced in the main series with the Gen 2 cars, some of them getting long in the tooth, and a lot of them have been picked up by collectors and turned into like museum pieces and things like that, because they're worth a lot more money as a, if they're a Bathurst winner or something like that, they're worth money keeping them like that rather than getting them beaten up in the Super 2 series. So there has been a shortage of cars for the Super 2 series. So Supercars have allowed people to build new cars for that series. Triple Eight are building a brand new Commodore for Jason Gummersall. It's quite interesting because Walkinshaws are building a Toyota, they built a Commodore, and they're racing Mustangs. So now, Triple Eight, they're racing Camaros, they're building a Mustang. So Triple Eight chassis 070 will be a Mustang. 071 is going to be a Gen 2 Commodore, and then 72, 73 will be the another two Mustangs for next season. But it's for Jason Gummersall, who owns quite a few Gen 2 Commodores, but it will be for his son Ben to race. As soon as it's completed, he's going to be competing in that in Super 2 for the rest of the year. So they have a better piece of equipment to go and win races with, I suppose. Now, the racing is back in Darwin this weekend. Whew, these breaks are just too short, aren't they? This is the way it should be, people, shouldn't it? I've got some ideas on that later when we talk about the Asian series. Anyway, obviously we saw the MSR Indigenous liveries before Perth because they ran them in Perth. So, of course, we have seen lots of other Indigenous liveries this week, so everyone gets their time in the sun. So far, we've only seen Team 18's livery. That's at the time of recording. You watch everyone have a flurry tomorrow, just before this gets released. And we'll have all these ones that I haven't talked about. And people will get on the keyboard and say, hey, you missed this team. No, I'm recording this on Sunday. At the moment, we've only seen Team 18. I think they've done the bare minimum. I was probably a little bit critical of the DeWalt car at the start of the season because it was very devoid of any detail that the car has had in it over the last couple of years. I actually don't, when it's on TV and going around the track, I think it looks pretty cool. And I really like the pink tradie livery car. So yeah, I'm not saying these cars look bad, but they have done the bare minimum to incorporate Indigenous livery into them as possible. All the other teams, if you release the liveries all on Thursday, the ones who do a piss poor effort, you're just going to get no exposure for your sponsors. I would have thought, like, MSR did quite a good job, and, Team 18, it's got them, people talking about them a bit, their time to shine in the sun for their sponsors, while everyone else, while you wait for what will probably be Thursday when the cars are at the track, and we'll take pretty photos of them on the track or whatever. But, when I'm looking at you, Tickford, I'm looking at you. When you do the bare minimum, no one's going to care because you just put a couple of squiggles. I'll get in trouble. But essentially that's what Tickford done the last couple of years, Anyway, that's probably enough ranting about that. I look forward to actually seeing some really cool liveries coming up this week though. Anyway, last year, Darwin. Brock Feeney took out both race wins. Will Brown was third and second in the two races. The other two podiums were Mr. Winterbottom, remember him, and Brody Kostecki was third on Sunday. He didn't even start the race on Saturday. So, yeah, there's hope for everyone there. The format over the weekend, very similar to what we are getting used to at the moment. 2 practice sessions on the Friday. Saturday morning, we have the qualifying for the 2 races, that 2-part thing where the 25, because we still have a wild card, the 25 go out, 15 get knocked out, top 10 do a run like 10 minutes apiece, and yeah, then the second qualifying session for the second race. Just after midday, we have got the first race, 42 laps at 3:40 in the afternoon. We've got the second race, 42 laps again. Sunday, we go to the part 1 and 2 qualifying in the morning, but it will be the 5 get knocked out and then the 10 get knocked out, or is it? I'm trying to remember now. I can't remember whether it was 5 or 7 in the one and then, 8 in the next bit. Anyway, we go to another top 10 shootout. Then 3:10 in the afternoon, we've got the big race of 70 laps where we get to see some strategy and pit stops and things like that, which of course the first 2 races will have the pit stops for the tyres. Strategy probably doesn't come into it quite as much around Darwin as what it did Wanneroo, but yeah, it will be interesting to see who does kind of the 2 and 4 tyres and whether Triple Eight is still going to be the quickest in the pit stops with doing all the tyres. So yeah, that will be an advantage to them. So my questions of the weekend, I've been doing these this year instead of predictions for the weekend because it kind of sucks just going, oh, well, it'll be Triple Eight winning again. Just which driver will be doing the winning? Anyway, will James Golding show up again? Last year, he was 4th in both of the races, just missing the podium both times. And he had a lot of speed in that final race in Perth. Will that carry over? And will we see him, become a winner before Thomas Randall as well? Can Brock Feeney stay on top of Will Brown at Triple Eight? At the start of the year, I fully thought Will Brown was going to walk away with it this year. And Brock has really just turned it up, and he is looking very, very strong at the moment and off form. I mean, he was very, very strong here last year as well. So next, who will be the lead Mustang this weekend? It seems to be a battle, Will WOU or Tickford turn up, or will, Payne sneak through again on Sunday to be the top Mustang? Who else is there? DJR. They had a bit of an ordinary weekend here as well last year, so I'm not holding my breath on that one. Will Matt Stone Racing fight again at another happy hunting ground? So at the start of the year, we obviously the Grand Prix they were very, very strong at. Tasmania they were very, very strong at. And some of the other rounds where they're traditionally not as good, they haven't been quite as good. Hidden Valley over the last few years has been a very happy hunting ground for them. Will they once again take the fight to the top guys here, or will they disappear a bit into the mid-pack? And speaking of not quite mid-pack anymore, will Erebus keep the wooden spoon, or will they hand it back to Blanchard Racing Team after their somewhat nightmarish weekend in Perth? And Blanchard's had that really good weekend. We will see Blanchard's not be last in the pit lane order this weekend. It will be Erebus actually at the bottom of the field. But will they, start to get their mojo back and start to fight their way forward? All of that to look forward to with the racing on the weekend. So the big talking point over the last week or so is this grand plan that Supercars have to have essentially a racing series in Asia. The original plan, I think it was a Barclay Nettlefold plan a few years ago, was where obviously with New Zealand, we lose a lot of time shipping the cars over there and shipping them back. So the idea was if we had, say, 1 or 2, you'd probably have to do 2 at least to justify it, but say 2 Asian rounds where you were supporting the F1 calendar over, say Singapore and China or something like that, and then potentially even the New Zealand round then is done by a second set of cars. So essentially the teams would say all have 4, or in Brad Jones Racing's case, they'd have 8 cars, I suppose, where you would permanently have a couple of cars sat. It's essentially a second set of stuff that would then travel to those international rounds, so that you didn't have a big loss of time, shipping things around like we do at the moment. Obviously, that is a massive undertaking in cost. And as we said, for someone like Brad Jones Racing, that means, 8 cars they have to have ready for the year. But then also, say, like with, Walkinshaw's, Triple Eight, Brad Jones Racing switching over manufacturers at the moment, does that mean, if you are Brad Jones Racing with 8 cars at the moment, you're not going to build a whole new fleet to go to Toyotas? You would have to look at converting. But for someone like Triple Eight, they're building 3 new Mustangs for next year. They are not converting any of their Camaros over. They will have 3. So the wild card has its own dedicated car. They will then probably have a 4th coming online at some point during the year. So they have a spare car. Anyway, that was the theory behind it. So what they're now saying is, how about we have an Asian series? So then if you have your main game next year, it's looking like it will be a 14-round calendar. And then say we have 6 rounds over in Asia. That then fills up 20 weekends of the year where supercars are racing, and you can strategically put some of these Asian rounds in between supercars rounds, and potentially even, like, we're looking at the bigger teams like, say, Triple Eight, maybe DJR, not too sure on sponsorships and things like that. But, teams that could do it, your bigger teams where they have a satellite team overseas, and then you have some local teams in that series. And so you have some of the main game drivers, so people want to watch it, blah, blah, blah. It's really good in theory. To me, though, the issue, they're talking 2027. So we've already got a lot of teams already in a big build phase, trying to get ready for manufacturer switches for next year. To then go and build a whole new fleet of cars, that's a big ask. Someone has to build them all to ship them over there. Obviously, you could get, say, someone like Triple Eight to build the whole field of them. They'd love to do that because of the coin that would be involved. And, you'd probably employ a separate crew to pump out that many cars and things like that. Still, it's a big ask for one team. The other thing that really got me was, though, we're talking about Super 2 going to Gen 3 in 2027 at the same time. So essentially, you're probably not going to find the whole Super 2 field switching over straight away. Obviously, when they went from Car of the Future to Gen 2, it did, or Gen 2, it did take a little bit of a switch over and things like that. You've still got to factor in that they've got to, there's all the second-hand cars essentially going to be taken up by Super 2 teams. All the second-hand cars that are available are going to be taken up by Super 2 teams. So this Asia thing would have to be a whole new field. Now, one of the other things with the bonus with Asia is it's in a relatively good time zone for us to watch as well. So they'll have it on, Saturday, Sunday afternoon over there, and, it's easier for us to watch. We get a bit more supercars action. There has to be a real reason for us to want to watch it, though. That's the issue that I see. And if it is predominantly Asian guys with if you've only got like 1 or 2 local teams, is that going to move the needle a lot where everybody wants to watch it? Things like that are my questions. I'm not saying not do the Asian thing. I think it's got some merit. I think the time frame might be a bit of an issue, and we probably need to at least ship our cars over there for at least 1 round to get a bit of exposure over there and things like that. Get people a bit excited about it rather than, go, here's a full field of cars, off you go kind of thing. I think if we could get a deal for the main game to go to, say, Singapore and be a sport race at Grand Prix or something like that for a year or 2 and build a bit of momentum around it, and also gives a bit of time for things to build up as well, potentially even having, some Asian teams want to start early and, become wildcards, say, in the, the Singapore GP event. Anyway, what my suggestion for the moment, though, to improve what I think would improve the product here, improve our television, improve a lot of things, would be Super 2 goes back to some standalone events. Now, hear me out. We actually expand the Super 2 calendar. We look at ways of actually making when Super 2 goes to Gen 3 as well, like not doing this next year, doing this for 2027 when they go to Gen 3, we actually look at ways that we can make those cars cheaper. Initial thoughts of mine, there would be better ways of doing it, except, but initial thought of mine would be to have, going back to more fiberglass, front bars and things like that, not having the exotic materials. So the front bar goes from being whatever, like 15 grand or whatever it is now, back to say $2,000. So when the guys rip a front bar off it, and maybe take a little more aero off the car just to make it, not quite as quick as a main game car, but find some ways of taking some of the cost out of, maybe running less sensors on the cars, things like that. We do have have them running Gen 3 cars, but have them running a bit cheaper way so that you can expand the calendar. Now, the way I'd like to look at it is that the main, we still go Super 2 at some of the main events, but then we have some standalone events. Now, these standalone events, I think they should be televised on free-to-air TV, like full proper telecast for the free-to-air production. Not sure how that works all financially and everything, but essentially then you get a free-to-air component that gives people a taste of supercars racing on the free-to-air, or a bigger taste of supercars racing. So say you have your 5 main events on free-to-air, plus say you have 4 standalone events. Kind of free-to-air then gets 9 events during the year and gets a bit of excitement to, people extending to Foxtel to see those events that they can't see live on the free-to-air TV. But to gain a little bit more traction as well, really encourage main game drivers to join in on the Super 2 stuff, like what they do with the Xfinity series, where main NASCAR guys will come down and, be bushwhackers, they used to be called, where they'd come down and race in that, but really encourage, you wouldn't have it at the main weekends, but on the standalone event weekends, imagine having, like Will Brown racing one week with Triple Eight and then Brock Feeney racing the next weekend, having Chaz and then Ryan Wood turning up for Walkinshaws, you got Cam Waters, Thomas Randall turning up for Tickford, Brad Jones Racing, you have a couple of their guys in there, just to, give people a bit more of a reason to watch these free-to-air events. That's my thoughts on it. Now, with some of the calendar stuff, what I thought, visit some of the tracks that the supercars don't race at as main time. So my suggestion, looking at, say, 2027, look at something like opening at Wanneroo the week before the Perth street race. So they're talking about having this 10-day festival or whatever in Perth. How cool would it be to have, essentially Super 2 kicking off the supercar season at Wanneroo, and then also having a couple of main guys, or, you could have multiple main guys in the field as well. Bring up the numbers. How big would that event actually be? And that would give them a good reason to travel so far over to Perth. It would get a lot of hype for the main game as well. I think that would really help. Then look at doing something like, Winton and Wakefield around the 2 New Zealand rounds. Granted, we're probably still going to have a biggish gap there because you'll have the Grand Prix and things like that in the middle on the Supercars calendar. But then say, as the Supercars, say, like this year when they packed up from the Grand Prix and shipped them over to New Zealand, while you had that big gap, if you had, say, Winton in the middle there as a Super 2 round with some of the main guys, there would be interest in that. Then you have your 2 New Zealand rounds, and then while the car's being shipped back, have them race at Wakefield. And also, it doesn't matter, like, oh, you're not going to get big crowds at these kind of tracks, but they're a bit more a TV event rather than, you know, really worrying about getting big crowds to them. That fills in a bit of a gap there. Then say going to Townsville with the supercars, Queensland Raceway is probably not a bad one to go to with the supercars. Say then we go to Mallala the week before the Bend 500. The Bend is obviously a big event on its own. You know, the Super 2 guys get their own event at Mallala. It fills in, you know, another track that the supercars don't go to. I think Mallala would have the ability to run Super 2 at it. Then kind of finishing off the season with Bathurst, Sandown and Adelaide at the Supercars events. So, you know, Sandown isn't a free-to-air TV event this year, but yeah, you're kind of following the free-to-air events towards the end of the year, and you're getting, for your Super 2 sponsors and things like that, you're getting your big, you know, exposure rounds for them there. Those ones, though, I'd say that you'd lock out where you wouldn't have main game drivers allowed to drive in those, like the Bathurst, Sandown, Adelaide events that are on the actual Supercars calendar. Then, you know, there's not guys getting extra practice and whatever at those circuits, extra miles in the main game. But yeah, so anyway, that's my thoughts on it. Let me know down in the comments what you think of it. As I said, I don't think the whole Asia thing is a bad idea. I think it could work really well, but I think the timeframes that they're talking are probably a little bit ambitious. I think we probably should focus on trying to expand the main series a bit more. I think this is the whole Super 2 having a few of their own rounds it means, say, if they have 4 of their own rounds and we have at least 14 rounds, it means you've got 18 weekends on the TV. You can fill in a couple of those gaps a lot better, so there is a bit more cadence. Granted, it won't be a main round event, but you do get a bit more cadence in the calendar then, especially around that New Zealand gap, which I do like the idea of now with the 2 rounds there with back-to-back. I think maybe even if we do a week gap in between them, so you have race, weekend, race, and if then you've got a, you know, Super 2 round in the middle of the first one and a Super 2 round in the middle of between, you know, them when they're coming back, I think that would fill in really well. But anyway, that's my thoughts on that. I'd love to hear from all of you guys. So yeah, down in the comments, let me know. And yeah, a massive shout out to Motorfocus and Pit Lane Partners for supporting the show. Check out what they're all about down in the description down there. Yeah, I love pointing down at things. And also, I'm nearly at 4,000 subscribers, so if you don't subscribe to the channel, can you please let's get me over that 4,000 mark, because that would be really exciting. But anyway, until next time, I'm still Dave, and I'll catch you later.